kami untuk menggapai semua kita dan kami pasti juara. Ini adalah alma mater kami, kebanggaan kami, jiwa raga kami, tempat belajar, tempat mengembangkan cita-cita kita di ujung kami bisa.
Ini adalah alma mater kami, kebanggaan kami, jiwa raga kami, tempat belajar, tempat mengembangkan cita. Ini adalah alma mater kami, kebanggaan kami, jiwa raga kami, tempat belajar,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we cordially invite you to be seated at the prescribed chair in the meeting room because in a few minutes the agenda will proceed in no time. Thank you.
Baiklah Bapak Ibu, acara akan kami mulai. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Respectable Rector Muhammadiyah University Jember, Dr. Hanafi MPD, Deputy Counselor 1, Dr. Bagus Setia Rintiarna MCom, Deputy Counselor 2, Mr. Sasmianto Eskep, Nurse MCAS, Vice Counselor 3, Dr. Sofian Rafi MPDI, Dean and Head of Study Program at Muhammadiyah University Jember.
Yang kami hormati Bupati Jember, Bapak Insinyur Haji Hendi Siswanto ST IPU ASEAN Engineer atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas Pendidikan atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas Kesehatan atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas Penanaman Modal dan Pelayanan Terpadu Satu Pintu atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas BKP SDM atau yang mewakili, Kepala Kepolisian Resor atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas BPKAD atau yang mewakili, Kepala Bagian Pemerintahan atau yang mewakili, Kepala Bakorwil 5 atau yang mewakili, Ketua PMI atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas PPP AKB atau yang mewakili, Kepala Serikat Pekerja BRI atau yang mewakili, Kepala BPS atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dandim atau yang mewakili, Kepala Kemenak atau yang mewakili, Kepala OJK atau yang mewakili, dan undangan lainnya.
Honorable Lee Chin Chin, Chairperson of Circular Business Association, Dr. Andi Nur Bosmisipi, MM, Lecturer of Business at Hasanuddin University, Respectable Advisor of CBASS, Sunil Ramakrishnan, Consulting Partner, Sustainability and ESG of Tata Consultancy Services, United Kingdom, Honorary Advisor of CBAS. First of all, let's praise our God, the most gracious, the most merciful, the creator and sustainer of the universe. Peace be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the last messenger of Allah, who has guided human life from destruction into the right way of Islam. Today, Wednesday, 3rd of July 2024, we all get here in the Circular Business Talk and the MoU commemorative event. We hope all participants getting benefits and blessing from our event today.
Puji syukur, marilah kita panjatkan kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala yang telah melimpahkan nikmat dan karunia-Nya sehingga pada hari ini, Rabu 3 Juli 2024, kita semua dapat berkumpul bersama dalam acara Circular Business Talk and the MoU Commemorative Event. Tak lupa salawat serta salam kita haturkan kepada junjungan kita Nabi Muhammad SAW, suri tauladan terbaik yang selalu menuntun kita umatnya untuk menjalankan Islam secara kafah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Alfan, and next to me is Dr. Astri Widyarli Anggreni, MA. It is an awesome and precious chance for us to be your master of ceremony in this evening. Allow me here to read our agenda today. First is opening. The second, singing the song of Indonesia Raya and Sang Surya. And the third is reading verse of Holy Al-Quran. The fourth is greetings. The fifth is closing. And the sixth is main agenda.
Susunan acara dalam pembukaan, yang pertama pembukaan, 2 menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya dan Sang Surya, 3. Pembacaan kalam ilahi. 4. Sambutan-sambutan. 5. Penutup. Dan 6. Acara inti.
Ladies and gentlemen, the first agenda is opening. Let's open the secular business talk and the MoU commemorative events by reading Basmalah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with what we are doing today, so that with the activity runs smoothly and result mutual benefits. Amin.
Amin.
Ya Rabbal Alamin. And the second agenda is singing the song Indonesia Raya and Sang Surya.
Menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya dan Sang Surya.
The audience is invited to take the perfect stand.
Hadirin dimohon berdiri.
please have a seat.
Hadirin silakan duduk kembali.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the next agenda is reciting of the Holy Al-Quran will be recited by Al-Ustadz Pak Susyanto.
Selanjutnya pembacaan ayat suci Al-Quran yang akan dilantunkan oleh Ustadz atau Susyanto. Kami persilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Innal ladzina amanu wa 'amilus solihati kanat lahum jannatul firdausi nuzula. Khalidina fiha la yabghuna anha hiwala. Qul law kana al-bahru midadan li kalimati rabbi lanafidal bahru qabla an tanfada kalimatu rabbi. Lanafidal bahru qabla an tanfada kalimatu rabbi walau ji'na bimithlihi madada. Qul innama ana basyarum mithlukum yuha ilayya annama ilahukum ana basyarum mithlukum yuha ilayya annama ilahukum ilahu wahid. Faman kana yarju liqa'a rabbih falyamal amalan salihan salihan wa la yushrik bi'ibadati rabbih ahada. Sadaqallahul azim. warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Maha suci Allah dengan segala firman-Nya.
Excellent ladies and gentlemen, step on the following agenda is opening speech by Vice Chancellor 1 Muhammadiyah University Jember, Dr. Bagus Setia Rintiana, MCom.
Sambutan selamat datang sekaligus membuka acara oleh Wakil Rektor 1 Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember kepada Dr. Bagus Setia Rintiana, MCom, kami persilahkan.
Bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Alhamdulillahilladzi anzala sakinata fi qulubil mu'minin liyazdadu imanan ma'a imanihim. Alhamdulillahilladzi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haq liyudhhirahu 'alad dini kullih wa kafa billahi syahidan. Amma ba'd. Yang kami hormati Bapak Asisten 3 Bapak Hari Agustriono MT, yang kami hormati Bapak Kepala Dinas Kesehatan atau yang mewakili, Kepala BKPMD atau yang mewakili, Bapak Kepala Dinas Pendidikan atau yang mewakili, Kepala Dinas BKP SDM atau yang mewakili, Kapolres, Dandim, dan para tamu undangan yang lain yang tidak bisa kami sebutkan satu persatu. Dear respected honorable guest, our resource person, Ms. Li Chin from Circular Business Association, the chairperson of Circular Business Association, Dr. Andi Nurbauma CP, lecturer at Universitas Hasanuddin, Mr. Sunil Ramakrisnanan from Tata Consultancy Services of United Kingdom, and also Dr. Haris Hermawan, Head of Academic R&D Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember. Puji syukur kita panjatkan kehadirat Allah SWT. Alhamdulillah pada kesempatan siang ini kita diberikan kenikmatan, kita diberikan kesehatan, sehingga dalam keadaan yang sangat luar biasa, dalam keadaan yang dipenuhi dengan keberkahan, kita bisa berkumpul di sini di salah satu aula Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember untuk berdiskusi, untuk saling bertukar pikiran, untuk saling memberikan pencerahan, memberikan solusi atas permasalahan-permasalahan yang pada kesempatan siang ini terkait dengan permasalahan ekonomi yang akan kita bahas bersama dengan Circular Business Association. Saya tidak tahu harus pakai bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Indonesia. Kemarin dipesani pakai bahasa Inggris, tapi takut saya kalau pakai bahasa Inggris ya. Mohon maaf. Yang kedua kalinya tentu kami menyampaikan rasa terima kasih dan penghargaan yang setinggi-tingginya atas kehadiran Bapak Ibu tamu undangan sekalian yang telah berkenan untuk hadir di tengah-tengah kami, di tengah-tengah kita, mewakili Bapak Rektor Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember. Kami menyampaikan penghargaan yang setinggi-tingginya atas kehadiran Bapak Ibu sekalian. Acara ini, Circular Business Talk, adalah bagian dari satu paket acara atau paket agenda yang kita sebut sebagai Expo Luaran Mata Kuliah Wajib Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember. Ini terdiri dari berbagai macam kegiatan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Jadi tadi pagi ada International Book Review. Kami menampilkan salah satu buku karya salah satu dosen kami, Profesor Dr. Nanang Saiful Rizal, yang juga kami mengundang panelis dari berbagai perguruan tinggi dan juga ada beberapa di antaranya yang berasal dari perguruan tinggi di Filipina, dan ternyata mengangkat topik berkaitan dengan buku itu ternyata juga sangat menarik sekali, karena isu yang dibahas adalah isu yang memang sangat terkait dengan kehidupan kita sehari-hari, yaitu terkait dengan water management atau tata kelola air. Dari sisi pertanian masuk, dari sisi kimia juga masuk, dari sisi teknik sipil juga masuk. Tadi pagi lumayan hangat diskusinya. Kemudian agenda berikutnya siang ini kita lanjutkan dengan Circular Business Talk, di mana pada kesempatan siang ini nanti kita akan berdiskusi tentang bagaimana kemudian menumbuhkan ekonomi yang lebih ramah lingkungan, yang lebih sustain, berkelanjutan begitu. Besok akan ada beberapa agenda lain seperti kewirausahaan mahasiswa, kompetisi kewirausahaan mahasiswa, di mana kemudian kita menumbuhkan jiwa kewirausahaan mahasiswa. Tadi sudah sangat hangat kami berdiskusi dengan Bapak Asisten 3 tentang bagaimana antusias dan ketertarikan beliau, juga bagaimana mendorong dunia kampus untuk juga bisa memfasilitasi bagaimana tumbuhnya jiwa kewirausahaan mahasiswa. Kemudian alhamdulillah juga ada satu kegiatan yang cukup menarik yang dikemas oleh panitia, yaitu J-Fest kalau nggak salah ya, di mana kemudian kita menampilkan kreativitas adik-adik kita dari SMA ya, untuk mengeksplorasi bagaimana ide mereka, bagaimana kreativitas mereka berkaitan dengan fashion. Bapak Ibu sekalian, tentu kegiatan ini adalah bagian dari upaya kami untuk mendekatkan Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember dengan berbagai stakeholder kami, ya, baik itu dari pemerintah daerah, dari private sector, dari international party. Makanya kami juga selain menggandeng pemerintah daerah, kami juga menggandeng institusi swasta, ya, UMKM, kemudian kami juga pihak internasional juga kami gandeng juga begitu, agar produk-produk kita, agar Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember semakin dekat dengan berbagai pihak, karena kami berkepentingan terhadap semua itu. Saat ini Bapak Ibu sekalian, Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember sudah memiliki 30 program studi dengan 9 fakultas. Sebentar lagi kita akan ketambahan 3 program studi. Tahun ini akan ketambahan 3 program studi lagi, yaitu teknik kimia, teknik industri, dan PGSD. Bersamaan dengan telah disetujuinya usulan kami untuk menggabungkan Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember dengan Institut Teknologi dan Bisnis Muhammadiyah di Banyuwangi. Sehingga Bapak Ibu sekalian, sebentar lagi ya kita akan punya kampus 2 di Banyuwangi. Sehingga kita akan semakin lebih dekat lagi dengan masyarakat. Karena itu mungkin kita akan semakin intens kerja bersama dengan berbagai pihak, tentu dalam kerangka akademik, dalam kerangka kegiatan penelitian, pengabdian pada masyarakat, maupun dalam kerangka kegiatan learning and teaching, pembelajaran, ya, pendidikan. Bapak Ibu sekalian, yang terakhir kami juga menyampaikan permohonan maaf dari Bapak Rektor Universitas Muhammadiyah Jember sekiranya ada hal yang kurang berkenan dalam penyambutan pada kesempatan siang ini. Semoga apa yang kita lakukan bisa berkelanjutan, bisa meningkatkan, menumbuhkan kerjasama yang saling menguntungkan, saling mendukung satu sama lain. Demikian yang bisa kami sampaikan. Apabila ada kesalahan kami mohon maaf. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kami sampaikan terima kasih.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next speech is from the region of Jember, who in this case is represented by Assistant 3, Mr. Hari Agustriono, LTD MT.
Sambutan selanjutnya dari Bupati Jember yang dalam hal ini akan diwakili oleh Asisten 3 kepada Bapak Hari Agustriono ATD MT, dipersilahkan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Pertama mohonkan izin, mohonkan maaf Bapak Bupati tidak bisa hadir karena beliau masih tadi perjalanan dari Jakarta. Mohon kepada kami untuk hadir di acara hari ini, mudah-mudahan tidak mengecewakan panjenengan semuanya. Saya akan membacakan sambutan dari beliau. Mudah-mudahan ini juga menjadikan salah satu kolaborasi nanti ke depan antara Pemkab Jember dengan kampus, terutama dengan akademisi yang di Universitas Muhammadiyah ini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Rabbi syrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Yang kami hormati dari PLH Rektor Universitas Muhammadiyah, Bapak Dr. Bagus Setio Riantama MKom, beserta jajaran dari Universitas Muhammadiyah. Yang kami hormati dari Forkompinda, dari dan Kodim 0824 atau mewakili dari Polres Jember atau mewakili dari Pak Korwil, ya. Dari teman-teman OPD ada Pak Sekdin DP3 AKB, dari perwakilan Dinas Kesehatan, Dinas Pendidikan, BPKAD, bagian Tapem, serta Bapak sekalian, yang kami hormati juga Miss Li Chin Chin, Mr. Dr. Andi Bau Masape, Mr. Sunil Ramakrishnan, Pak Dr. Haris Hermawan, serta hadirin sekalian. Mengawali sambutan ini, marilah kita senantiasa memanjatkan puji syukur kepada Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, Tuhan yang Maha Kuasa, bahwa alhamdulillah kita masih diberi nikmat, limpahan dan rahmat dari Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, dan sehingga bisa hadir di dalam Circular Business Talk and the MoU Commemoration dan sosialisasi rekognisi dari pembelajaran lampau. Salawat dan salam kita sampaikan kepada junjungan kita Nabi besar Muhammad SAW, kepada keluarga dan para sahabat beliau. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang kami hormati, sebagaimana kita ketahui bahwa rekognisi pembelajaran lampau atau RPL ini adalah penyetaraan akademik atas pengalaman kerja dan atau pelatihan bersertifikasi untuk memperoleh kualifikasi pendidikan tinggi di berbagai program studi pada sebuah perguruan tinggi. Tambahan, tadi kami tidak sengaja ketemu dengan staf kami di BKD. Beliau juga selesai menjalankan RPL ini dalam waktu hanya 1 tahun. Pengalaman kerjanya juga dinilai yang ke belakang. Ya. Ini terobosan yang sangat menarik, sehingga memotivasi kami terutama di Pemda ini untuk terus senang untuk belajar. Ya. RPL merupakan implementasi pembelajaran sepanjang hayat lifelong learning untuk meningkatkan jumlah angkatan kerja terdidik dan berkeahlian. RPL memberikan kesempatan yang lebih luas bagi masyarakat yang telah berpengalaman kerja untuk mendapatkan pendidikan tinggi. Melalui asesmen, capaian pembelajaran yang diperoleh dari pengalaman kerja dan atau pelatihan bersertifikasi ditetapkan menjadi raihan satuan kredit semester dalam bentuk mata kuliah. Tentunya para mahasiswa yang sudah bekerja ini juga bisa memberikan satu nilai positif kalau bertemu dengan mahasiswa-mahasiswa lain yang dia murni dari baru masuk akademisi atau masuk kuliah, sehingga tentunya akan ada kolaborasi pengalaman yang memotivasi anak kita yang generasi di bawahnya untuk semangat bahwa pengalaman yang ditularkan dari mahasiswa yang bekerja itu juga memberikan nilai plus bagi mahasiswa yang lainnya. Adapun keuntungan dan keunggulan dengan RPL ini mengikuti program, yaitu lulus lebih cepat. Kemudian mereka adalah juga praktisi dan keputusan yang nyata sehingga memberikan satu nilai kualitas mungkin agak berbeda. Kemudian terkait dengan upaya yang berlanjutan, terutama pengelolaan lingkungan hidup di Jember, Pemkab Jember sudah melakukan berbagai upaya dalam pelindungan dan pengelolaan lingkungan hidup melalui penyelesaian tantangan terkait lingkungan hingga dicapainya solusi yang implementatif yang bisa dilaksanakan berdasarkan kinerja pengelolaan lingkungan yang telah dituangkan dalam dokumen informasi kinerja pengelolaan lingkungan hidup atau IKP-LHD. Selain itu juga sinergitas dan kolaborasi dengan semua elemen masyarakat yang berbasiskan potensi daerah dan juga membangun tata kelola pemerintahan yang kondusif antara eksekutif, legislatif, masyarakat dan komponen pembangunan daerah lainnya. Bapak sekalian, bahwa di dalam IKP LHD tadi itu merupakan salah satu amanat dari Undang-Undang Nomor 32 Tahun 2009 tentang perlindungan dan pengelolaan lingkungan hidup. Hal ini untuk memberikan gambaran dan uraian secara jelas mengenai data, informasi, berdasarkan isu prioritas lingkungan Kabupaten Jember dan inovasi yang dikembangkan yang didasarkan pada proses partisipatif dengan melibatkan para pemangku kepentingan di Kabupaten Jember, meliputi unsur dari OPD, perguruan tinggi, dan lembaga swadaya masyarakat. Mungkin itu yang bisa kami sampaikan. Akhir kata, semoga Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala yang Maha Kuasa senantiasa memberikan ridho dan juga lindungan pada kita semuanya. Amin ya Rabbal Alamin. Mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan. Sebagai penutup, izinkan kami menyampaikan satu buah pantun dari Bapak Bupati. Nanti dicakep gitu ya. Pagi-pagi minum wedang hangat.
Cakep.
Jika ingin sehat, tambah madu di dalam gelas.
Cakep.
Semoga kegiatan ini bermanfaat.
Cakep.
Semoga terlahir generasi bangsa berkualitas.
Cakep.
Matur nuwun. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bupati Jember, Insinyur Haji Hendi Siswanto, ST IPU, ASN Engineer.
Kami sampaikan terima kasih.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the end of the opening event of the Circular Business Talk and the MoU Commemorative event. With the end of this opening event, we hope that this event will run smoothly and be blessed by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala.
Tibalah kita di penghujung acara pembukaan Circular Business Talk and the MoU Commemorative event. Marilah kita segenap mengucapkan Alhamdulillah karena segala yang telah kita lalui bersama diberikan kelancaran dengan penuh hikmat dan rasa kebersamaan. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment you have been waiting for. As Master of Ceremony, we would like to thank to the world audiences and apologize for all shortcomings and mistakes. And for the next agenda will be hosted by Mr. Ageng Suharno, MPD. We kindly invite Mr. Ageng Suharno, MPD. Mr., you may take the floor.
Inilah saat yang dinantikan, yaitu acara inti. Kami mohon undur diri dan acara selanjutnya akan dipandu oleh Bapak Ageng Suharno MPD. Tapi kami juga tidak mau kalah. Mohon izin untuk menutup acara pembukaan ini dengan pantun. Mohon disambut juga dengan kata cakep. Begitu ya Bapak Ibu?
Buah nanas, buah ceri.
Cakep.
Dicampur gula rasanya enak sekali.
Cakep. Cukup sekian pertemuan kali ini. Semoga bisa bertemu lagi di kemudian hari. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Please welcome Mr. Ageng Suharno, MPD. Time for you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you for our MC, Ms. Rafan and Ms. Astri. Thank you. And then the second is, welcome to the prime time of today's event to remember the signing of a memorandum of understanding between UNMUHJEMBER and the Circular Business Association. My name is Ageng Suharno. Will be your moderator, and the first session is titled Circular Business Talk, Unlocking the Next $1 Trillion. Indeed, the circular economy is estimated to be worth 4.1 trillion pounds sterling by 2020 and 30. But no company can get there on its own. It needs an ecosystem. And then why? Because single products do not solve problems in totality. In this session, we are pleased to welcome three esteemed speakers, Mr. Sunil, and the second, Mr. Sunil Ramakrishnan, and then Dr. Andi Baumasapi and Ms. Lee Jin Chin to share their insight and thought on this topic in a moderated panel discussion. Please join me in warmly welcoming our speakers. After the panel discussion, we will have a question and answer, and then and at the end, and then so if you have any question for our panelists, please use the chat on the Zoom. So please use the Zoom on chatting channel, and then please raise your hand, and then in the person attendees, please raise your hand, and so our team may get to you. Thank you. And then now, before we delete to the next agenda, into the exciting topic, please allow me to welcome Ms. Lee Jin, Chairperson of Circular Business Association, to introduce their association and set the scene for the moderated panel discussion. Ms. Lee Jin is a Smith MacArthur Fellow on Circular Economy since 2016, where she gained the opportunity to learn directly from the thought leaders who developed the circular economy we know today. Lee Jin has more than 12 years of consulting experience, mainly working on projects involving in Malaysian government and multilateral agencies such as in the United Nations Development Program. Her professional involvement includes the drafting of Malaysia's final Millennium Development Goals National Report in 2015, and then in the first Sustainable Development Goals Voluntary National Review for Malaysia in 2016, as well as the National Biodiversity Expenditures and Financial Needs Assessment and the National Solid Waste Management Study, where The recycling rate was estimated as a saving solar and has a background environmental management, environmental, economic, and ecology. Passionate about solving the climate crisis while having a fun, region is a driven ecosystem builder that connects the dots where most people cannot see them in order to get more climate action done faster. So please welcome Ms. Lijin. Well, please welcome to the floor, Ms. Chin. Okay. Get the exposed for Ms. Lijin.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Pak Ageng, for that introduction and for welcoming me to today's talk. My name is Lijin. I'm the chairperson of the association. Established on the 10th of May in 2022. But although we are based in Malaysia, we work globally with various sort of talents and solution providers, including companies, to basically bring together all these different people to the floor in order to solve the climate crisis. Now, we are sort of fondly called C-Bass, sort of in reminder that like a bass player in a musical ensemble, we are here to harmonize the other instruments to create a clear tune. The three distinct features that we have as an association is that we believe the whole economy needs to change. So it's not just small improvements to what we know the economy to be today. And we believe strongly in profits as well as work on ecosystem building. Now, where did the inspiration actually come from for our association to be established? Really, it's in this realization that we are the last generation that can solve the climate crisis. Like many different generations before us, each of our generations have had a very big challenge to overcome. And ours, those of us here who can actually understand, work, as well as contribute to decisions that's being made for others at this point in time, we actually are a very unique generation to be in. So my children, although they're born now, they're at 4 years old or 13 months old, they would not be able to really be part of this immediate period of solving the climate crisis. And why that is the case is because the warning that's actually come out from the International Panel of Climate Change is that in the next 6 to 7 years, it's going to be the deciding years on whether or not we lock in the worst situation of the climate. So if you can imagine your phone having an operating system, the climate system is like the operating system of our world that we live in. And therefore, our economy, our societies actually depend on it. So if the operating system itself is locked into a very hard situation, it means that a lot of development sort of aspirations in sustainability become harder to achieve because the climate itself already is very hard. Now, what is interesting is that the International Panel of Climate Crisis actually mentioned, climate change actually mentioned that it's not so much the problem that we don't know what to do. It's not that we don't have any technologies that can solve the problem. It's not that we don't have money floating around that can be used to solve the problem. And it's also not because we don't have talents who can solve the problem. The warning that actually came about is that the pace and the scale of climate action is not sufficient to tackle climate change. And therefore, this is the area that we specifically work on. in order to increase that pace and scale. Which brings us to the reason for our association to exist, which is that we're here to solve the climate crisis and create a livable world by accelerating business transition into the circular economy. Now, as an ecosystem builder, we realize that how the climate movement has been approached, or even the whole sustainability has a narrative that has been used until today, is very much driven by this notion that it should be charitable, that it is a noble cause. But what is limiting for this movement is definitely gotten us here up to the point that we are. But it's not going to be able to deliver the 45% greenhouse gas emission reductions that is needed by 2030, which is only six years a bit away, for us to actually prevent the worst of the climate situation from being locked in for generations to come. Okay, so this climate movement 1.0, that's very noble cause focus. It's very individual or vertical focus. Let's say you're doing something in just energy or just materials or mining, for example. This movement is also based on minimizing the bad, and it's very much often in terms of this feeling of guilt, right? Guilty that, we aren't doing enough, that we aren't solving these things, that we're not thinking about it. Unfortunately, though, this is not going to be very effective. And why is that? It's because it fundamentally misses the point of how we change the way that people access goods and services on a daily basis, not only as individuals, but also as businesses as well. And secondly, what it misses is that it doesn't really talk about how people are going to make a living, how they're going to earn their livelihoods from becoming sustainable. So when we start talking about economy, and this is why circular economy also plays such an interesting role as a pathway, because from the beginning, it actually talks about economy. And that, from our association's perspective, includes way of life and includes livelihoods. So there is a very strong need actually to update how we approach solving the whole climate situation, or even solving the sustainability situation as a whole, whereby it's no longer just about noble cause, but it is driven by this understanding that profits is needed, that it's not about a single solution, single technologies or single companies that can solve it, but that it is also about the ecosystem empowerment. It is also about, coming together as groups of companies, as groups of organizations to fill in each other's gaps and really move this faster. And therefore, with that, the feeling behind it is not so much based on guilt or blackmailing people for not doing enough, but really we have to continuously empower people to step beyond what they immediately know and come up with more ingenuine and more innovative ways to solve the problem. Now, on that note, the circular economy presents a very useful pathway as a framework because, number one, renewable energy is not going to get us to the 45% reductions by 2030 on its own. This is because only 55% of the emissions is from the energy sector, whereas 45% of the emissions is actually in the products, on how we make and use products on a daily basis, of course, as individuals, but also as businesses as well. And that brings us to the second point of why circular economy is so powerful, because consumers alone actually cannot get us there. Now, a lot of people think that consumers, before the pollution emerges, they are the last step. So that's where we should be targeting our education, awareness, and initiatives. But consumers actually have very little decisions to be making. There are decisions that's already made for them before they touch or use a product. These could be in how the product is delivered to them, how they access it, how they deliver, how all these products are delivered to them, what are the choice of materials that go in, what are the processes that go in to bring those material, extract those material and bring them into the manufacturing processes. These decisions are actually done upstream. And that's why when the circular economy comes into play, where it really focuses on something by design, working upstream before waste and pollution even emerges. Is there something that we could do to deliver performance and actually change the entire system into something that would deliver net positive, that from the beginning, it is meant to create better good and not just less bad. This brings circular economy into a very comprehensive framework of tying together different verticals and filling in a lot of the other gaps that, in the past, or how we actually look at sustainability today is still not sufficient. Now, the challenge, though, is how can we rapidly replace all linear economy products with circular economy products in the next 6 to 7 years? When we started, it was 7 to 8 years, and the countdown is really coming now. Now, from our perspective as an association, what we do is that we would actually be addressing the pain of this situation. Now, we know there are economics regions, governments of various nations, private sector companies, as well as financial institutions that may have actually come up with their climate or sustainability commitment. But very often, there is this major gap that is missing because they don't know who they can reliably turn to deliver on the ground. So what we do as Circular Business Association is we're trying to answer this question of who, right? Not just how, the circular economy is the how, but we're answering the question of who. And we're trying to build this profitable circular economy driven ecosystem that can fill in this implementation gap so that the people or organizations who need to achieve these climate and sustainability goals actually can rely on their solution providers to deliver what is needed. And it's not just people in recovery and repurposing. A lot of people think circular economy is just recycling, but it is much more than that. It's not recycling alone. But there are also people in raw materials, the manufacturers, quality and compliance, distributors, service providers, end users, even the investors, talents across different business functions. It doesn't matter if you're accountants, lawyers, or tax consultants, creative writers, designers, etc. There are product designers and inventors as well, logistics and delivery, technology providers, as well as the regulators. Now, you might be wondering how we actually try to align so many different people into the ecosystem. And we've realized that there is a necessity for us to run a number of courses to meet people and organizations where they are and bring them closer and aligned into the ecosystem. Because if it's just like a soup of companies that actually don't understand or approach the problem together in the same way, that it would be difficult for us to actually, come together and solve the problem in totality. Yeah. So there is the ESG Ready certification program, which is designed to build courage and to start and confidence to engage in meaningful ESG with their clients without the overwhelm and overkill. We don't think every company needs to start with a sustainability report before they can do something in ESG. The Circular Transitions Program is really designed to align the use of circular economy as a tool, as a pathway for companies to actually solve climate-related problems and the sustainability-related problems by coming into this wider ecosystem. And lastly is the Carbon Market Journey Readiness, which is to meet those providers who are interested to see how they can earn from carbon credits because they're doing society a favor of storing, avoiding, or reducing carbon. Now, for us to keep this ecosystem going, having referral agreements is something that's very strong in our ecosystem as well, to make sure that people are comfortable bringing in leads to us and coming to solve the problem together. Now, from our association's perspective, we set up a two-tier referral system in a way that if somebody were to introduce our association to a lead who ends up making a payment to us, 10% of that amount that's paid to the association is shared with this C-linker as a sales agent referral fee. And the person who found the C-linker also gets a 5% sales agent manager referral fee as well. And this is for us to model how referral fees would actually be used in order to reward each other within that ecosystem. So Thanks for letting me share a bit about our association. If you'd like to find out more, you can always visit our website at www.circularbusinessassociation.org. And now I'd like to just quickly sort of open the panel discussions of setting by setting the context first, where we're going to be discussing unleashing the next $1 trillion business. So where's this $1 trillion? Now, this between now and 2030, it's been estimated that circular economy will have a market value of 4.1 trillion euros, right? But it's not going to only be realized through things like recycling, because ESG and sustainability as a whole shouldn't only be about minimizing the bad. And if that is the case, then it's all about just minimizing the costs and managing the risk. And this puts us in a certain frame of mind where we don't have to care about anything so long as, we minimize our own little bad. In contrast, the circular economy asks us and challenges us to actually take on a bigger understanding of what for are we pursuing sustainability, ESG, or even all these SDG and climate actions. Now, this particular diagram actually shows us, it's a way for me, after being so many years in the environment scene, to really make sense of all the jargons that's flying around the realm in sustainability. Now, the textbook definition of sustainability is that it is meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs of future generations to meet their needs, which is actually very confusing because there's so many needs, right? So a simple way to actually look at it is that at the end of the point, sustainability is that end goal. And what we're just trying to do here is really help human species continue to survive and to thrive. And what does survive and thrive actually mean? How does it look like? It's very much put in or described by the Sustainable Development Goals, which has parallels to what the ESG pillars are in place to make sure that we're not just talking about, the economy, we're also talking about the environment and the social pillars, and at the same time, making sure that these claims of what's being done is trustable. We have the governance pillar. Now, the circular economy comes in to say that apart from just, doing the bare minimum, we are actually talking about doing less bad and building in from the beginning a lot more good. And this is where the ESG value, the place that benefit of that can be monetized actually comes from and moves ESG or sustainability beyond just being a cost or risk management issue. And this is because the circular economy is a system solution framework that's restorative and regenerative by design. It is very important to actually pay attention to this issue of by design because it talks about the intention right from the beginning. And there are three principles in the circular economy that actually help to sort of solidify or help people have this guiding compass for them to say, how can we get to, creating such an economy that is restorative and regenerative? Now, the first principle is that it regenerates natural systems. That if you imagine because we are alive and consuming, it actually ends up with more better soils, cleaner water, better air. Someone actually asked me this question in the past. Is it a problem of littering, which is like people simply throwing rubbish everywhere? Or is it a problem of what they litter? Meaning that those things cannot go back to the natural environment or enrich the natural environment in a good way. Because even a fruit tree litters, even trees litter, they have leaf litter, they have fruit litter. But because it can go back and it enriches the natural systems that actually provide for us, therefore the littering is not so much the problem, but it is what it is that's being littered. The second principle, therefore, is in designing out waste and pollution right from the beginning, before the symptoms even emerge. Can we actually deliver value, deliver performance in a different way so that it doesn't even create waste and pollution from the beginning? If it is something that cannot actually go back to the natural environment easily, then the next principle is about keeping those products and materials in use at its highest value for as long as possible and not just simply crushing it. Which is where there's a big misconception between this whole notion of linear economy, recycling economy, and the circular economy. Where society is in terms of taking resources, throwing it away, and after usage, is very much in the linear economy model, take, make, and throw away. But we've already started to see, of course, improvements to that. And this is halfway going to, or maybe part of the way going towards a circular economy, but it's still not the circular economy. And this is where we are talking about a lot of recycling related targets. We're talking about upcycling, we're talking about waste to energy, etc. It's an improvement to the linear economy, but it is not the circular economy in the sense that there's still waste that needs to come out. And it's about minimizing the bad stuff, right? That comes out at the end of the thought. What we're aiming to do with the circular economy is completely change this understanding. It's not about doing something that's less bad at the end of the chain. We're actually talking about building in more good and less bad intentionally from the start, so that every time we actually consume, more value comes back for circulation, for not only in society, but also in the economy. So with that, there is a very quick checklist which is available on our website. You can have a quick look at what is not the circular economy and what it is. Just a very quick mention that it is not about recycled content alone. It's not about recycling rates alone. And it's not only a product design matter. So with that, I pass it back to Pak Ageng, our moderator, to introduce the panelists for our discussion. Yep, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop in the chat and we'll try and answer it in the Q&A session later. Thank you very much. Pak Ageng, passing it over to you.
For your introduction, Chibas, and setting the scene for our moderated panel discussion in relation to region, I would now like invite our two other panel speakers to the floor for the discussion. Please welcome Mr. Sunil Ramkrishnan, Honorary Advisor of CBAS and Consulting Partner for Sustainability and ESG at Tata Consultancy Services, or TCS, one of the largest IT service companies in UK that has an annual revenue of £3 billion. And then Mr. Sunil is also a board member of Tech UK Climate Council, has been a speaker at the London School of Economics of Artificial Intelligence and Sustainability, and has publication in industry magazines on energy, cyber risk, emission trading markets, among others. Welcome, Mr. Sunil. Okay, and then next, I would like to introduce Dr. Andi Bomasape, Honorary Advisor of CBAS also, and Senior Managing Partner of ACMF Group, from Indonesia, that focuses on developing international private fundraising in ASEAN and achieving a single integrated market through regional economic integration. Dr. Andi is also a permanent lecturer at Hasanuddin University and also has the head of business development for assets and business unit in the university, has an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder in Indonesia, helping SMEs and startups develop their growth and get access to private fundraising. Welcome, Pak Dr. Andi. Dr. Andi, okay. And then, right, so let us jump straight into the first question to kick off this moderated discussion. I'd like to ask to all of you, I have a question. Number one, why would business want to get involved with ESG, circular economy? Question number one, I have a question. Why would business want to get involved with ESG, circular economy? Regine, Dr. Andi, and also Sunil. Perhaps you have, okay.
Right. Thanks very much for that. But again, I think I would jump in to start off first, and then probably we can hear from Sunil, and then Dr. Andy for that. Now, from our association's perspective, at least we're working at the sort of like the global level, there's actually a great need for businesses to actually get involved with ESG and circular economy because the pain is actually very strong, right? The climate crisis itself is the big elephant in the room where we can see that the pain is already very strong. But importantly as well, because there is regulatory pressure and stakeholder pressure, where increasingly we're starting to see governments request, needing to meet their, of course, the Paris Agreement on the climate change, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, and governments are starting to put through a lot more different regulations. Some of the important regulations that people may want to pay attention to include things like the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Although it's implemented in Europe, what it basically does is create almost like a carbon tax of sorts for manufacturers that are offshore outside of Europe. When they have their products going into Europe, it can be subject to the disclosures of how much carbon emission is trapped in there, and therefore needing to pay per ton of carbon how much a certain amount that follows the European emissions trading scheme price. So for overseas sort of like manufacturers, this is something that could potentially actually cause them to be replaced as a supplier or a vendor if they are unfamiliar with these changing regulations. Apart from that, there's also like corporate sort of reporting that's having more regulations in play. Even the stock markets in Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, as well as Indonesia actually have issued a joint statement to say that they are moving towards creating a sustainability reporting ecosystem, and therefore will be requiring public listed companies to actually improve in terms of the sustainability reporting. So although it's the sort of like big boys who are probably getting more of the regulatory pressure at this point in time, we'll see that the sort of suppliers and vendors to these players also will be facing that pressure as they are being asked about how they're dealing with sustainability, and if they're not part of that journey for their client, they might actually be replaced. So there is actually growing sort of sentiment, even in China as well, where they are cracking down a lot into the financial sector. And they are actually saying that if these organizations are giving their money to other organizations, or at least giving them debt and things like that, then they would need to know what is being done with that money. And in that sort of application, you're starting to see that even companies who are looking for investors, etc., they are needing to actually disclose a lot more about what their business is doing for solving these sustainability related issues. Yeah, so that's just my little bit of the contribution. Probably I'll have Sunil sort of jump in and share a lot more from his side. I think Sunil may need to be unmuted. Yeah, because we can't unmute ourselves.
Hi, thank you everyone, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone where you are. So yeah, as Lynn rightly said, the regulatory aspect is very, very important, but I think the second aspect is more a personal aspect as well. We see climate change, sustainability, ESG impacting in numerous ways. One is surely extreme weather events. We see more and more of that extreme weather events like heat waves, storms, impacting lot of infrastructure of the large power companies in terms of ensuring that the operations are disrupted. And what it means is customers are actually not able to get electricity, not able to even boil their drinking water, and that's a huge, huge impact for large corporations. And secondly, surely it's impacting a lot of IT and technology in terms of impact on water usage, water cooling, and that's another big issue. And the third issue is around water scarcity as well. what's happening is as more and more people are using more and more of water, there's an impact on getting safe and drinking water in numerous countries, and that's going to be a bigger and bigger issue. So surely there are more regulations around energy that is going to impact the way a lot of companies use fossil powered energy as well as move towards more sustainable energy as well. And there are regulations around climate risk disclosure, where more and more companies that are even having 100, 200 people will be required to disclose how much of carbon emissions they're emitting in their operations, as well as the carbon emissions that are getting emitted from their suppliers, as well as the carbon emissions in the product that their customers use. So there's a huge impact from the regulatory point of view, from a personal climate point of view, and even in terms of point of view of large companies, public sectors being able to continue their operations.
Right. Thanks very much, Sunil, for that. I think yeah, probably I'd like to jump in there just quickly before Dr. Andy and just sort of add on a little bit that, when we start talking about extreme weather events, very often it is a economic disruption. Just remember that the flooding that happened in Thailand, which wiped out the semiconductor sort of industry and pulled out foreign direct investment going into that sort of sector. I think it's more than, just the loss of human lives. Of course, that's huge, but what happens after that immediate weather event, the whole rebuilding of people's lives, and whether or not the jobs that they initially had can actually continue to exist is something that, is worrying as well as we face more and more extreme weather conditions. So sorry, Dr. Andy, I'll pass it back to you now. Yeah. I think but Dr. Andy cannot be unmute himself, so you might have to unmute him.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Lijin. Okay. Yeah, I will just add what the Lijin Din and Daniel say before about what the benefit and what the opportunity and why circular business do. Okay. Because I'm academician also, I want to share the macro perspective, Pak Ageng and Pak Dr. Haris. I put in the future of circular in covering circular economy initiative in Indonesia report. Is a report prepared from Bapenas together with United Nations Development Program. This report supporting also the Kingdom of Denmark. They have been launched the report about the issue. I just share the data. What the benefit our Indonesia running the circular economy. This report show us there mentioned Legion have been mentioned before. They reduce costs. It's right because in the report show the operational cost saving more than 9 billion rupiah. There's so many decrease the cost to operating when the business moving to the linear to the circular economy. And also what the benefit we implementing a circular economy in the macro perspective. Indonesia have been job creation 10 thousand, 10 and 5,000 people have been create a new job about the circular economy. And also it's a good news for our environment emission. We success to reduction emission more than 1.5 million ton CO2 carbon oxide. And Also, we have been energy saving more than 5 million mega WM. It is a good news. I think why we very support and invited all the business owner and all the corporation to moving from linear and to circular economy. There's so many benefit. Also they get. It is from my view, Pak Sugeng. I think back to you after. Yeah, we can discuss the next question. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps Sunil can start off by giving us a broader context, and then Dr. Andi, perhaps you can give us a bit of the Indonesian perspective to that. Sunil, would you like to go first? Yeah, I think someone need to unmute Sunil.
Hi, thanks, Lynn. Very quickly on the pain points businesses face in adopting circular economy. So one key point is it's a different business model. Most of the large companies that have been making good business out of the last 100 years is companies that follow a linear economy, as Lynn mentioned as well. It's all about extracting, processing, manufacturing, selling, and then once it's sold, they just forget what happens. In the last 10 years, now these companies have started looking at how do I now recycle it, remove some of the precious material from that products and bring it back to the supply chain. But circular economy needs a very different way of thinking. It's a completely different business model, which is why a lot of businesses have issues understanding that, because this includes thinking of how do I create products that can be more circular, which means those products can be reused either in its entirety or reused in some part, or if they can't be reused at all, how do I then recycle it? And then at cases, how can I ensure customers reduce usage of some products? So it's a very different way of thinking, which is different from the last 100 years, even from the time the automobiles were created in terms of a linear economy. So it's a very, very different way of thinking. That's why businesses struggle in looking at how do I do that. And the second issue is around customers. So many of the customers don't understand that concept enough, understand what is the benefit of using a product that has a circular economy. We would have seen a lot of fast fashion where the young customers want to just buy a very cheap shirt, use it for 1 or 2 weeks, and then throw it away. So it requires a very different mindset by which customers should be ready to pay a higher price because the product will not spoil at all. They can use it for 10 years, 20 years, and sometimes even 50 years. And that's directly impacting our environment, our climate, and so on. So these are the two key things. And the third, I will talk a bit on regulations and then pass it back to Lynn because she can cover regulations in a very big way. Because more and more of our regulations have never brought any incentives, any subsidies, any support mechanism to companies that are investing in circular economy. And a lot of these circular economy new business models need upfront investment in terms of creating these products that are more circular, educating the customers to adopt these products because they are more circular, and even going back to the suppliers and making them aware why it is useful for them to actually provide materials for the circular economy. So relations also plays a key part. So it's surely about a new business model that is difficult for companies to understand. Its customers not being used to a circular economy. And thirdly, regulations surely needs to play a part to help customers, the suppliers, and the manufacturers to actually make that move.
Thanks very much, Sunil, for that. And I definitely have something to chip in there as well. But I'd love to actually hear from maybe Pak Dr. Andi's perspective of Indonesia's challenges as well. And then I'll come back to that ball that you just passed over to me in terms of how these parts of the regulatory or the incentive policy support is actually sort of missing. But Dr. Andi, maybe you want to share your piece first? Yeah.
Okay, I agree with Sanil. It is a survey from I look at from Bapenas. The survey show about how the response a firm or corporation the result is their top 10 barrier adopting. Barrier is mean, I think it's mean the pain. Yeah. We agree about so many challenging how to the business, the corporation, they moving to linear and circular. And I agree with Sanil. It is about the business model, how to they change the business model, because very, very different. Linear economy and then the circular economy have a different business model. Okay, I will just show you the 10 barrier. I will be quickly explain. The pen first pen is difficult in changing customer and habits. Indonesian customer maybe still don't aware about how do they protect our environment. And if you go to the market, let's say Lijin, go to the pasar, yeah, we call pasar here. Let's say I forget in Jember, the pasar. The customer still need a plastic bag from the plastic. It's very hard to change the habit when we after buy product from the mini market and we still using the plastic bag plastic. It is still difficult to change our habits. Okay. The second is the businessman and the corporation having a lack of infrastructure. Is infrastructure is mean maybe like machine, a fabric. Machine is we using how to the operating raw material. Can be the material can be I mean the operation to more uh, more friendly with the agro I mean friendly about the environment. It is very still lack infrastructure. It's still hard to find the building and also the machine friendly, eco-friendly. I think I mean like that. Then also implementation and enforcement failure. The third issue, implementation, I can conclude about the regulation. Indonesia government still not push hard for all the company. Yeah, still many company running their business is no implementation, circular economy, and so many regulation is still they not. Yeah, I think they don't adopt the regulation. Three factor is the issue in Indonesia. I think so. Yeah, I can mention it quickly. Another pain is about insufficient end market, poorly defined target and objective, inadequate defined legal framework, not profitable. Yeah, I think so many companies still not concerned about the circular economy, but because Sanil had mentioned before, it's very costly, but it's not costly. Yeah, costly is mean high price, yeah, and imperfect information and lack of capital. This is a top barrier. It's a pain of corporation Indonesia according the survey. Okay, back to you, Pak Ageng.
Sorry, Pak Ageng, is it okay that I chip in some thoughts there as well? Yeah, can I add something to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thanks very much, Sunil and Dr. Andy for sharing, those perspectives. I think I just wanted to chip in there in terms of like three main things. Now, in terms of like, this whole thing about, changing the habits and behaviors, it might seem like, change is very slow, but at the same time, I'd like to share some examples where we actually seen change happen very fast. So there's actually examples, let's say, in the food and beverage sector, whereby, it's typically a situation where shops, if they cannot finish, let's say the cafes or restaurants or buffets, when they cannot finish the food, it would go straight into the bin, right, as it would be thrown away. But there is actually providers coming into the space, applying that circular economy thinking to say that how can we keep food as food for as long as possible before even converting it to even compost or fertilizer. So there are sort of like adoptions of consumers moving in that direction where if there's an application that enables them to know where there is excess food and they're able to access that good quality food at a discount, then we're able to actually distribute that food to more people who actually can eat the food rather than just shoving it straight into the bin. And from the business perspective, that partners up with these type of apps, they would actually also be able to recover part of that, in a way, lost cost, right? That because if you just throw everything into the bin, you wouldn't be able to capture it. So that's why we're starting to see also in various sort of like grocery stores or supermarkets where people have reduced to clear, or they call it too good to go, and they give down discounts from 30% all the way down to 60%, so that food which has been produced to give nutrition to people continues to play that first role of giving nutrition to people. And before that, then only it gets cascaded into the other types of usage in it. And this is why when we talk about circular economy, we're actually trying to tap into a lot of sort of creative ways of looking at how we can keep products and materials in use for as long as possible at its highest intended value, instead of just rushing to recycle it or rushing to burn it off as a biogas, etc. So this is very interesting in that, we have seen rapid change in consumers happen before. It happened with our smartphones. It happened with our tablets and things like that. I come from a generation where the first time I actually saw a mobile phone, it was a brick. Right? My dad came home with a brick. And today we live with like these super sleek phones that can do literally everything that a personal computer can do. And that happened within 15 years, 10 years. So we have actually seen consumers become actually very fast in adoption when they can clearly see the benefit or the higher performance that it brings to their life. And this is where circular economy really challenges businesses and challenges designers of products and services to say that it's not about making the consumer accept that they will have to pay higher prices and lower quality performance as a sacrifice towards solving sustainability or climate change. What circular economy is challenging us to do is say, how can we deliver even better performance? People can have even better value in their lives while also solving sustainability and climate challenges, and it doesn't necessarily have to be more expensive. Now, why it is more expensive at this point in time is because the entire system itself has had more than 50 years of becoming very efficient in a linear economy where things have to be taken, made, and thrown away, right? There, as Sunil mentioned there is a lack of regulation and policy and incentives that would help businesses who are investing in the circular economy. But essentially, let's look at this particular pain, right? If you look at the green products or sustainable products in the market today, literally, it's like a soup of solutions. Everyone is saying they're green. Everyone is saying that we can solve this and that. But when you really look into these so-called solutions, none of them are complete in terms of solving that problem for the client or for the person. Right? It's just like back in the day when the phone, even if it had touchscreen, but there were no applications that could respond to a touchscreen. Therefore, it's not complete. It doesn't solve that problem for that user. So therefore, what it means that for a user who's saying, now I'm going to go for sustainability, right? Let's say I am a business that's saying, I'm going to go for sustainability. It's very difficult to, number one, find the right vendors who understand what it is you're trying to do. Number two, have the complete suite of vendors that can solve the problem in totality and not just say, oh, I just do the packaging part and I don't do the logistic part, or I don't do the warehousing part, or something like that. And that creates a lot of cost around the time, the effort, and the money to actually figure out all of these things and test out different solutions before a business can actually say, okay, I actually can solve this problem if I want to go towards sustainability, which makes it very difficult to switch. So it's not just about the solution itself that may have a high upfront cost, but the fact that there's just so many different solutions out there and needing to wade through all of it is very overwhelming, takes a lot of time, and is very difficult for people to make that switch. So that really links back to that change management issue that both Dr. Andy and Sunil mentioned, in that even if an organization wanted to change, how to manage that change. Sometimes it might even eat into its own, well-established revenue, but how are they going to actually shift that so that they have a future as a business? That's a main issue there. And therefore, from our association standpoint, something that we see, actually, it's very simple. There are only 5 things that companies would need to do in order to, get on with this sustainability journey. But they need help to find out who they can turn to. If they need help to figure things out, we would need to bring together that community of consultants, strategy-based businesses to help them. If they need the product, we need to get the right group of product people who align somewhat with each other so that it can be like, like our phone, everyone knows the operating system. Everyone knows, let's say, Google Play or Apple Store, and their apps actually build on it. So therefore, it's aligned in some sense that the user doesn't have to understand all of this. It just needs to solve our problem, right? And if they need to learn it, there's a group of people there, not just doing courses and programs, but also card games, board games, experiential tours to help people understand and experience what circular is, what sustainable is. And if you need help in terms of measuring where you are and what your efforts have resulted in, so they can justify that continued improvement in that direction, you would have a group of people who can help you with measurement. And if you need to tell that story authentically, to draw together the right clients, to educate your customers in that journey and build that loyalty towards your business and brand, then there would be a whole group of people there in that communications realm to help you tell it properly. So I just want to end on that one more last point, which Sunil actually mentioned. And I think this probably is a question, but again, we'll ask later on, but I'll just chip in here while I remember. Now, just to give you a very concrete example of how the linear system, the economic system today is very disadvantageous to circular businesses. The rules of the game is not in our favor completely yet, right? There's improvements, which is great. An example is this. We have an approved community who actually has a technology that can regenerate batteries. So if you look at a battery going into a hospital or a person going to hospital, you wouldn't send the person straight to the morgue, right? And say, okay, dead, go straight to the morgue. You'd send them to ICU and see if you can recover them. So he has actually a technology that can try and regenerate these batteries so that it doesn't get straight sent to a recycler that takes out all the important materials, and then that's it. That's the end of this battery's life. But the problem is, because of this misunderstanding of what circular economy is, and to think that recycling is that ideal situation to get to, the regulators would not in a way be open to consider how to support this type of circular business to come into play, in the sense of how do we define if a battery is a waste or not? It is a scheduled waste. Does it need certain licenses or not? What about trading of it from borders outside of the country? Is it going to have certain customs or tariff regulations that come into play? So when we start looking at, this transformation to circular economy, there's actually many different facets that we could actually approach to provide a solution. One, I've raised out this concrete example where the providers are facing this difficulty. It doesn't mean that, that's the end of the story. It's too difficult. Let's not do anything about it. But it opens up that opportunity to then address the concerns that these regulators have to say, okay, if there is a concern about how we are tracking these batteries, how we're making sure that they don't become this scheduled waste that leaks into the environment and creates health problems. Is there a track and trace technology that we could use, for example, in order to help make sure these things get complied to? Is there another way for us to know that these records cannot be like simply fungible? And that's where blockchain technology is emerging to come into the scene. So with that, I'll pass it back to Pak Ageng. I hope that enriched the discussion. Pak Ageng?
I just want to ask you one more. How can business overcome this pain? As you told here is that this is the measurement to it become the measurement to good. What is it? This is yes. How can business overcome these pains?
Right, maybe we can hear from Sunil first. Yeah, from a more global perspective. Yeah, and then Pak Datan.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. And I think as Lynn rightly said, right, creating these circular products is having a high initial cost. It's because these products have to be more durable. They're designed for being longevity, and they're designed to be repairable as well. The second aspect is there's a limited scale you start with, so the economics of scale benefit doesn't come in. So that's why it's expensive. So the way to overcome these challenges, and that's what some of the large retailers are doing, is it's now creating a new business opportunity for them. So some of these large retailers, and we are working with a few that are involved in furnitures, are involved in machine tools, are involved in selling day-to-day things for customers. So what they've realized is if I make these more durable, more long-living, and more repairable products, I can actually create a new revenue stream. And many of these large retailers who generate revenues of 20, $30 billion are saying in the next 10 years, circular economy can double my revenue. And why they say that is these new products, though they will be slightly more expensive, they can live for longer time. So customers will buy it than needing to change a washing machine every 5 years or 10 years versus change a washing machine every 50 years because it can be repaired, it can continue living long. So how can they overcome is, first of all, they create something called a clear business case. And this is going to be the cost of that investment. And in some cases, the investment run into $10 billion, $20 billion. And in some semiconductor industry, it could run to hundreds of billions of dollars. And they clearly know that creating these new circular products will actually help them get into a new market that they were not and help them increase their return on investment. So how do they do that? So there's 5 steps involved in doing that. One is collaboration. So many of these companies all over the world are collaborating with their suppliers. And in many of these cases, they have thousands of suppliers giving them different parts of the products they sell. They're working with the non-government organizations, the local communities, to understand their problems, make them aware of the benefits of their circular products as well. They are working with governments, they are working with various regulatory bodies to ensure those people understand the value these more expensive circular products are providing and the advantage from a sustainability point of view, advantage from a climate point of view, and so on. And they're working with universities like yourself to bring in the new research, new thinking to create these new material as well. And many of these new material have not even been created. We see a lot of scope of creating these new material using quantum computing enabled with generative AI, blockchain, machine learning. The second thing is it requires a lot of investment, which is what these large retailers, large consumer product companies are doing in terms of coming up with these new innovative products. And even for that, they're using things like AI, machine learning, IoT, digital twins to accelerate that research. And in some cases, creating a new material takes 10 years, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. But with these new technologies, they're able to accelerate that and create more circular pharmaceutical products, retail products, in almost 3 to 6 months, which was not possible before. And the last aspect is educating the customers, the suppliers, and the government again is very, very important that these large retailers doing to overcome these challenges of moving towards a circular economy.
Great. And before we hear from Pak Dr. Andi, I'd just like to also chip in a little bit. Now, what's interesting is that we're starting to see some companies where they are producing these higher quality, long-lasting products. And the business model actually needed to change as well in order to tap into that revenue. So apart from the typical selling it off to the customer, we're also starting to see more examples where companies are saying, I retain the ownership of the product. My customers are just buying the performance of it. And a very interesting example is light, whereby in the past, a company called Philips, I'm sure you've seen Philips light bulbs. You have thought that you would need the light bulbs to break down in order for the company to continue making money. Now, when they started applying circular thinking into the business itself, they also applied it into the product design. So they were saying that, okay, if now I'm going to retain my light bulbs instead of selling it to the client, the customers, and because these light bulbs last so long, I can actually get more customers using the same light bulb instead of investing more material into producing it. How am I going to make money? So what they did was they did a subscription model whereby like big organizations, let's say a whole airport or a whole university or a whole retail chain, for example, the whole Tesco's, right? For example, it's not Tesco, but it's another company. They would actually say, okay, we can't afford to have our businesses disrupted by light bulbs going off or certain parts of our space not having light. So if that's the case, what if I just paid you for the light that we receive, and before any light bulbs break down or need to be replaced or whatever, your team can actually come in, change whatever is needed, maintain whatever is needed, so that the performance I'm paying for as the client is that I have light in my spaces. That's it. So by doing so, the company initially had a target of just achieving like 15% replacement, 15% of circular revenues. So 15% of revenues coming from circular business models. And that was like a goal back in like 2016. But as of now, they've actually raised 30% of their revenues coming from these circular business models. So it's very interesting to actually see that the performance economy takes away that initial high costs for customers to access great quality products, better quality in terms of the lighting systems, and they have data to tell them where the emissions are coming from the buildings and from the lighting perspective. And they also have a cheaper way, in a sense, to renovate or refresh their space with lighting without necessarily incurring all the renovation costs, without necessarily incurring all the change in light bulbs and the lighting fixtures, etc. So Signify as the company, they've actually also moved into 3D printing all of the lighting exterior features as well for these big clients, so that you don't even have to cut the ceiling to replace a complete new different light fixture. You literally just 3D printed it to fit the exact pot, and it's a plug and play situation. So we're starting to see these changes being adopted in that sort of like circle business realm. Yeah, sorry, but Dr. Andi, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Legend. I think we should give appreciation, a big appreciation to University Muhammadiyah Jember, I think so, and also Pak Dr. Haris Hermawan to initiate this event. Because why? I think it's not, yeah, it's still little. Okay, still little university concerned about the circular economy issue. I think it's still not many in Indonesia. So I think we can big applause for this, yeah, Legend. And I think University Muhammadiyah Jember have big collaboration with CBS and also in my university, we can support this. Okay, what I can give two solution how to the business solve depend about the especially how to the push circular business model. because I'm also in university, so I know. First, collaboration with industry, or industry should must collaboration with the university. Yeah, what the we call this pentahelix model. Not only university, but I think industry and also government. We push the pentahelix model. Okay, what can be what can be industry get from university? They can doing research together, developing, let's say, developing new material. I think university can conduct a research and developing sustainable recyclable material. They can research how to the reducing waste and also ensuring product life cycle. It is much and in this event, I think not from Indonesia. I in fact also so many friends from Japan and India. I think they can collaborate with University Indonesia. We have program in Ministry of Education and higher education. We call Kedareka. Legend, you can searching Kedareka. Kedareka is one of the program from our ministry to push innovation in and matching innovation based on research, industry and researchers. It is the one of solution we can solve the problem. And the last, I think the last is in universities have incubator. Okay, I am and Pak Dr. Haris is a incubator expert. What the business industrial expert and business owner get from incubator or accelerator in university, because startup can give you some solution, can give offering the how to solve the problem about the industry issue or problem in the business. And I think it's a very good for the business collaboration with incubator. I think so many incubator startup now focus how to develop like circular business, circular economy, and how to solve problem about the waste management issue and climate change issue. And Sanals also mentioned about EOT, Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence. I think in incubator you can find startup focus for this field. Yeah, I think that's all from my side, Legend. Back to Pak Ageng. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, Pak Ageng, I know we are pressed for time, but I just want to add a little bit, based on like what Dr. Andi was sharing just now. And I think like we when we talk about, how businesses actually, overcome this pain, and of course there are different players in this realm that we need to bring together. And that's something that our association is working very hard on to try and bring together that ecosystem so that would be able to play these different roles. Of course, I think like from that perspective, I'd like to mention that the ecosystem play itself is something that probably you need to appreciate, that when you have the right type of people who approach it in the same way as you do, you can go much further, right? So if you imagine if we're trying to paddle a boat and to see a sunset, if everyone in the boat actually is paddling towards west, then of course the chance of seeing the sunset is going to be very high. But when you actually have team members who are paddling east while you are trying to pull west, then it makes it very difficult to actually see the sunset. So I think when we approach this from the association standpoint, there's a lot of work in terms of facilitating dialogue, in terms of aligning people, in terms of helping people relate sustainability to their business, and that we solve that pain first, right? Because while sustainability and climate things is like all the noble stuff in the world, yes, but if the business cannot survive, then whatever impact or solution it can deliver to the world basically doesn't exist. So that's something that the association works hard on in terms of trying to say, how can we actually create the environment that is favorable for these businesses to do the great things that they do, but not expect them to become profitable all on their own. Right? We actually have want to leverage on each other's core competencies, leverage on each other's networks, skills, to be able to move faster and more effectively together. So I thought I'd just chip in that bit as well. I'm really excited for the next session as well. If some of you are staying on Zoom for the session number 2, where we dive deeper into, that relationship of academia and the transformation into circular business. I'd love to dive deeper into that later on. So back to you, Pak Agin.
As we know that Indonesia is still a developing country. Indonesia is not an industrial country or more, or even a developed country, but still a developing country. So, in the relationship with ESG maybe, or other, what is it, on a topic maybe, how does this relate to policymakers and regulators? Maybe Lee Jin, or Dr. Andi, and Mr. Sunil, maybe you have another description, maybe what?
Yeah, I think I'll chip in there quickly. I mean, having been in that consultancy role where I was sitting actually on the same table as regulators and policymakers, I can appreciate the hesitance to, very quickly pass various policies or laws or incentives and things like that, because there is a responsibility that the government plays to ensure that the disruption is controlled in some sense, right? So to some extent, you can appreciate that for policymakers and regulators, the market to some extent needs to be give enough confidence to them that if they were to pass a certain policy or regulation, there would be enough people to actually fill in that market need to supply those solutions up. And in all honesty, I think circular businesses at this point are still very much at its infancy. The scale of which these solutions can be deployed is not yet at that point where, you can just put in a law and everyone has to comply. Even the providers themselves are unable to match the scale of the need. So there's a bit of a back and forth, right, between policymakers and regulators, as well as the private sector or businesses that's trying to enable this circular economy. In that the barriers that prevent these businesses from growing is something that the policymakers and regulators can help to overcome by certain ways. For example, in recognizing certain definitions may be changing, recognizing that certain business conditions may need to change, by penalizing certain bad behavior that is already, has a solution too. So, for example, let's say that people see in cities, especially developing cities, we see construction sites that's half built and then it's left empty there. Right, or it's already completely built, but then because the landlord doesn't want to, take a lower rent, they leave it empty for periods on end, and it creates a lot of of course, it's not sightly, but at the same time, it creates spaces for unscrupulous activities potentially to be there, and it becomes a whole issue of safety in cities and things like that. So when regulators and policymakers recognize that this is something that that building itself or that site itself has a potential to have another use or to be given life or to be used to support the circular development of businesses who may not be able to afford high rents from the beginning. Then we start seeing that they could use the various things like, okay, what if we tax these landlords who don't rent it out within 2 months, for example, and therefore set up another program where collaboratively they get to know circular businesses who would need that retail space in order to do it. Just to give you an example, I'm not saying that it might be immediately applicable into all developing countries, but to give you an example of something that's happened in Netherlands, is that there was an abandoned water theme park, and it was huge. And instead of just asking to demolish the whole thing, which is quite common in developing countries, you would demolish the whole thing. They actually asked the community what sort of like services they were lacking within that area. And they then invited a group of sort of circular businesses to become tenants of this water theme park. There was, of course, certain retrofittings and things like that needed to be done. But the condition was that in order to get the low rent for that space, they would need to be contributing something else to another business within that vicinity. Right. So if you were a bread maker, then you would actually occupy that space, but your waste breads would actually go to, let's say, someone who's fermenting beer. In that case, it's okay. So from fermenting beer, then there was they have their waste heats and things like that, and they actually contribute that to another business that's in that space. So there are different examples whereby policy and regulation does play a good role in nurturing a space that's friendly for these businesses to reach that scale so that eventually they would be able to deploy at large scale and minimize that disruption to people's lives. The danger in suddenly putting in a regulation, I think it can be seen, for example, in India, we saw there was this whole thing of no single-use plastic, and the switch between having plastic and no plastic was very short. You would see businesses collapse because maybe their whole business is about selling single-use plastic, right? And that disrupts people's lives, not only in terms of the inconvenience of not having a single-use plastic, but people literally lost their entire livelihoods, their children's education bills, their health potential bills, their mortgage bills. All of these can't be paid. So there would be a big backlash towards policy and regulations that come in that fashion to say that you're prioritizing something that doesn't really care about us, and therefore we're going to reject everything in one go. And that's a dangerous game to be playing. So I think from that circular perspective, where we're always thinking about how to do something that can regenerate and restore and create more good in the world, that policymakers actually can see their role in nurturing and supporting and removing those barriers that stop these things from happening. So I'll pass that back over. Sunil, you'd like to chip in?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Lynn. You gave a great example of how policymakers are incentivizing usage and moving towards circular products. So I'll talk more from a policy point of view. I think this is where I think the European Union and UK have come up with a slightly more innovative policy. So, for example, there is something called Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is called CSRD. And a lot of other countries are slightly trying to adopt that in different shapes and form. And what CSRD, this regulation did is, as Lynn mentioned, it did not upfront come with a policy. It gave businesses, corporates, organizations 3 years to transition, because we know suddenly in 1 year, companies cannot move to a new type of circular economy. So CSRD gave these large companies almost 3 years, and many of these regulations will start become mandatory, because previously a lot of policy were voluntary, which means companies will just report something. Some companies will not even report something, and most of the reporting can't be verified as well. So now we are moving toward regulations and policies like CSRD, which is Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is going to become more mandatory, going to be more auditable. And what this is doing is, from a circular economy point of view, is there is something called E5, which is part 5 of the CSRD regulation, that talks specifically about the circular transition indicators. And what it requires the organizations, businesses, corporates to do is report how much of the products they sell are circular products, how much of the supplies they are buying from their suppliers are circular supplies. So that element of reporting has already started, and that reporting includes them having to verify their claims that they're making to ensure that there's no greenwashing there as well. There's an element of on a year-on-year basis, these large companies, businesses have to show improvement on a year-on-year basis, by which every year I'm able to reduce the non-circular products that I'm selling, and that is surely helping a lot of businesses move towards a more circular economy point of view as well. And there's element of resource efficiency that has to be reported in that CSRD regulation, and a big part of the resource efficiency is showing the circularity aspect of it versus ensuring that there's zero waste, zero plastic usage, and so on. So very happy to see regulations now making things like circular economy becoming more mandatory as well. Surely Europe, UK, and slowly getting adopted in countries across the world as well.
And also it's interesting to point out that ISO, the International Standards Organization, has literally come out with a new set, three new standards specifically for the circular economy. And our association has just bought the single-use license for those standards, and we are going to have study groups to actually dive deeper. And I'd be very happy to extend an invitation to our friends here at UNMUHJEMBER to be part of those study groups and really understand how, with these standards, it's really telling these organizations you're not going to be hanging there left alone. We actually would be able to say that how do you actually know it's traceable? How do you actually set up, trustability in terms of all those data that is required and things like that. I think it's an interesting stage that we're in. Circular economy, although it seems to be already quite popular in its use, you have to appreciate it's very new still. It's almost at its infancy, and in that sense, how society, let's say, for example, change from taking up 2G to 3G to 4G and now 5G. There is a sort of set of processes and relationship between policy regulators as well as the private sector in creating that as something that you and I would be able to enjoy. Yeah, sorry, but Dandy, would you have anything to chip in? Yeah. If not, I'll pass it back to Pak Ageng. I think Pak Dandy may have just yeah, okay, yep, there he is.
Yeah, sorry, I have a problem with my network. I cannot join in my. I think short comment. Regulatory is very important issue. How to make sure the implementing circular economy in the society and the businesses and industry. The Indonesia have been have a lot of regulation to support and develop the circular economy. Yeah, but the problem is the inconsistent and consistent our government to implement it. It is the one issue. How to the government consistent and commitment to ensure the regulator. It is only my point, Legend. Yeah, back to you because I have problem the network. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Pak Tani. So, Pak Ageng, perhaps we can take some questions as well from the audience if there's any. Yeah.
We just have 5 more minutes to go. Firstly, there is a question from Pak Pur. Who is Pak? Makbur. Mr. Haris, are you still with us? Mr. Haris, are you still with us, Mr. Haris? Mr. Mahfudua told us before that there is a question from Babur. What is the question, Mr. Haris? Mr. Haris? Okay. Mr. Haris, Mr. Mahfuda told us that there is a question from Pak Bor. What's the question, Mr. Haris?
The question is, what about the role of women for the circular business? He is the chief of empowerment, women empowerment.
Allow me to maybe chip in there first. I think like women actually have a huge role to play in circular businesses. In fact, if you look at a lot of leadership actually that's happening in the space, women actually play a very good role. And you actually even see that there is more women actually getting involved in this, in part because I think the way that, you know, sustainability and circular economy needs to be approached is it's not as mechanical as one would think, and typically, you know, we're starting to see like the sort of the default way in which businesses have been set up is of looking at it from a more mechanical, sort of logical sort of standpoint on its own. And where women leadership actually comes in is there's a lot of nurturing sort of experimentative realm that I think like just adds on a different perspective to it. For example, some of the thought leaders in this space, there's Dame Ellen MacArthur, who, you know, started this whole sort of concept that she experienced as a sailor, you know, are being dealt with. And obviously, whatever economic system we have today doesn't solve it. There is, of course, leaders in donut economy as well. Kate Rasworth, she's also very passionate in terms of talking about not only do we need to stay within the environmental boundaries, but we actually have social safety net sort of boundaries that we need to respect as well when we're designing for economy. If you look into the lady Guterres, who came about, she's from Latin America, and she managed to bring together the negotiation teams that led to the signing of the Paris Agreement. That strength in character, and if you listen to her backstory behind, it was her vision of being asked by her children or great-grandchildren 7 generations down about what did you do, you know. And I think when we start tapping into this world whereby that passion, the emotion, is just as important for the success of transformation, and we're comfortable with doing that. I think women leaders have a lot to share and contribute in that sense, and really start bringing in that softer, empathetic lens towards this transformation. Yeah, there is a lot of space in there. So maybe Sunil or Pak Tatan, do you have something else to add to that?
Sure. Great summary, Len. I think I'll reinforce what Len mentioned about Kate Raworth, right? So Kate really revolutionized the donut economics, and that really made a lot of large companies, large business leaders rethink their linear economy business in terms of extraction, manufacturing, sell, and then throw away and waste. Versus with that donut economics, she made this circular economy principle so easy for people to understand, and she has actually run these sessions to hundreds of companies all over the world, and that really made a very simplified version of how do you look at a very difficult problem? As Len mentioned, make it more simpler, bring that more passion of circularity and sustainability into it with a softer touch of not just profit, but climate impact, and as well as impact on societies and communities. So really hats off to Kate there, who really reminds me of a woman who has really changed the game in circular economy. And as Lynn mentioned, there are many more as well. And many of the sustainability leaders we see in large companies, and I'm working with lots of consumer product companies, retailers, even banks, and many of the leaders in these companies who lead sustainability, almost half of them are women. Actually, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years. You see more and more women coming in because they bring in a different thinking, they bring in more of that empathy, as Lynn mentioned, as well as that dispassionate focus on sustainability and climate than just pure profits. So I think, yeah, I think we have come a long way, and I see more and more women being involved in circular economy and sustainability, and that's really helping us bring that diverse thinking into our play as well.
And just to add a bit there, of course, it doesn't diminish the role of men in the sustainability or the circular transformation. In fact, it's very important actually to bring that perspective in as well and continue to grow together. Despite a lot more women getting involved in the sustainability realm, having the right counterparts that are open to discussion, to exploration, to bring their skills and expertise, regardless of gender, it becomes very sort of like important for businesses to survive that change, because at the end of the day, it is a change management issue, to move into a complete different sort of business model, to engage with your customers differently as well. So I would say that there is why this even emerged, I think, is because the fact that the climate situation, the sustainability challenges, and the pathway that circular economy creates is just so disruptive that we're starting to see like the typical glass ceilings or the rules of the game are changing, and that creates opportunities for talents across gender, across various beliefs, to actually come in and bring in their disruptive solutions to the world.
For the answers, and then thank you so much for the discussion, because this is the 5 times that works. So we go to the end of our discussion, and then thank you so much for the discussion. I'm really excited and cannot wait to be part of the creating a better economic system and livable world. I would love to invite everyone of you here to also consider what we could do. Some of us will be the direct solution providers, but don't underestimate the connectors and networking that bridges the right people together. We welcome you to explore more with Sibas and UNMUHJEMBER about how to get involved. And now, because the limitation of the time, this is 15:37 on Jakarta's time. So this is the time for a memorandum of understanding signed between UNMUHJEMBER and Sibas. Yes, and this is on happened on March 9th, 2024, commemorated on 3 July 2024.
Right. So I think for this session, we just really wanted to commemorate the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding. And we have actually our version, our copy over here. Maybe I can invite a copy from the representative of UNMUHJEMBER to also hold up theirs. And then let's take a quick snapshot. Maybe I can ask the host at UNMUHJEMBER to help me take a snapshot of the everyone who's in attendance. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you for the messaging.
Yeah. So can someone take a quick snapshot on Zoom for that? Right. Okay. Let's take a snapshot. Okay. Right. Okay. And with that, thank you very much. I think for reaching out to us, but Dr. Harris, in terms of forming this memorandum of understanding, I just wanted to actually also share a celebratory offer that we would like to make from our association standpoint, to really, as we mentioned, having the right community, having the right people to get the right action and right understanding done is very important. And therefore, these two programs, the ESG Ready Certification Program, Level 1 especially, and the Circular Transitions Program, is something that we truly believe would continue to benefit and align various talents and providers together. So in celebration for the MoU, we would like to actually sort of like highlight these two programs as something that our community may consider to join and be part of. The first sort of level 1 ESG ready certification is really to really get the basics of ESG in place, so that even if things change, evolve very quickly, you would have that confidence to continue engaging in meaningful ESG and sustainability discussions, as well as to use circular economy as a tool to identify greenwashing. And instead of just to judge people, we're using it to identify greenwashing so that we can contribute to the solutions of making it not greenwashed, right? So we actually trying to help businesses recognize where their business to actually be part of that solution for their clients who may already be falling in that potential problems of greenwashing. And the Circular Transition Program is really a deep dive into how our association understands the circular economy and the ecosystem play, so that together we can drive faster, more aligned action together. Usually each of these courses will cost about $199 US. But if you use the referral code UNMUHJEMBER1, then you would be able to access the bulk price order of $65 US for one of the courses. Or if you're going to take both courses, which I really recommend and be part of our community, that would be $110 US. And this price is only available for the next 2 days for the dates of training in August or September. What you get is not just the workshop of 2 90-minute sessions, but we also have 3 post-workshop trainings where you can bring your organization examples, or maybe you are going to go to a client pitch soon, or maybe you're going to have a meeting with your client or supplier soon, and you want someone to work through your example together. We have 3 more post-workshop trainings that follow up on the workshop. On top of that, you would be part of our WhatsApp community, specialized for the alumni of these 2 programs, so that you have that sort of like comrades that understand where your vision is and that appreciate that journey that you're taking to move your organization towards sustainability. So I thought I'd just share this as an offer. Thank you very much again to the University of MoU for becoming our MoU partner, and we look forward to a lot of fruitful collaboration in the future.
You are welcome, Nijin. Now we to the end of our discussion. So we come to the end of this discussion. It was great to hear the insight and opinions of our panel today. Definitely prompts a lot of ideas, and we would encourage you not just stop at the ideas. Come talk to us, UNMUHJEMBER and Sibas, to see how to move yet another step forward. And then on the note, I would not like to invite all of you to bear witness to this memorandum of understanding signed between University MoUJEMBER and Circular Business Association. First, let me invite Dr. Harris, Dr. Harris, Head of Academic R&D of UNMUHJEMBER, and also Regine, Cultural President of Circular Business Association. Please hold the MoU document. Now I would like to invite you all to be party to this exchange by taking a group photo with panelists and those attending in person. For those of you online, please kindly share your reactions using the room emotion and in the chat. Okay. Well, now take the photo. With all of the attender.
Okay, yep, thank you very much. I've snapped the photos. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it done?
Yes, it is.
One more time, Nijin. One more time, Nijin.
Oh, one more time. Okay.
Okay. Okay. 1, 2. Ready?
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Pak Dr. Haris for putting it together, Pak Ageng for hosting, and Pak Dr. Andi and Sunil for joining us as panelists.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for the insightful discussion by our panelists, Mr. Sunil Ramakrishnan, Dr. Andi Bau Masapi, and Miss or Mrs.
Well, you can still call me Miss, yeah, but I'm married with 2 kids.
Fine. Okay, Miss Lijin Chin. And for our wonderful audience, we will be starting our next session shortly titled Unleashing the Power of Academia to Accelerate Business Transformation. Stay tuned in the channel.